Well, good morning, friend. I'm out here at the park again this morning. I did a little bit of meditating at home, but, well, I'll tell you, my mother decided that I'm going to play trains this afternoon, so I thought I'd come out and get a walk in early. And when I got out here, I was talking to the Holy Spirit, and we were looking at the truth of things. Because, friends, sometimes I start getting fear in my life, and I have decisions to be made, and I don't know which decisions to make. And well, the world says I'm making all the wrong decisions, but according to God, I'm making the right decisions. That is the thought of the Holy Spirit that's in my mind, right? Because He's asked me to have faith beyond faith and to follow a path that other people don't necessarily agree with. But what we were talking about together this morning when I come out here was the purpose and meaning of life. Have you ever really thought about that? If in the beginning God said, "I am that I am," then why are you? Well, you are because you are. My Father created you because He wanted to know love by experience, right? And so therefore He created us for that purpose, and then He gave us the ability to have that purpose too. That was the whole point of the fruit in the garden, right? Is the serpent spoke with half a tongue and gave us half a truth that said we could know the power of God, which is the power of love. However, to know love means to know love and forgiveness, but what the serpent forgot to mention was that meant guilt and fear, right? And selfishness. So that's what the thought of Satan is. It's guilt, fear, and selfishness, and causes us to hide our thoughts from God, from the thought that loves us. And then so that we don't have to look at our own thoughts, we look at everybody else and judge people. That way we don't have to look at ourselves. And that's what my thought of Satan, which is my thought of selfishness and guilt, is always trying to get me to do. So I'm always trying to put my thoughts in front of God. And that can be difficult when you're in the middle of making decisions that you can't tell whether they're right or wrong. And some things people will say are clearly wrong and other things clearly right. But if you look at truth in a bigger perspective, you'll see things from a different place. Because sometimes to know one thing, you have to know the other. So God is love, but He had to create a thought that was, that is not, yet is. It says that in Revelation, it is what is not yet is. And that thought is your thought of selfishness, which is your thought of Satan. It's like a spirit, an angel. It doesn't abide in my Father, yet my Father created it and cast it into creation. Even though He's in you and you're in Him, this thought of Satan is also in you because you are divine, and He is divine in you. So you are the fruit of two vines. You are the fruit of love and forgiveness, and you are also the fruit of selfishness and fear, which creates guilt because we hide our thoughts from God because we know what He wants of us and what He said, and that was to hang all the laws on the prophets on only 2 commandments. So we're not supposed to judge one another. Instead, we're supposed to look at the plank in our eye instead of the speck in theirs, right? And if we do it and we let God into our minds to shine the light on it, then He can show us what's right and what's wrong. Because sometimes in life, you're going down paths that you're not sure are right. And the only way to know is to put Him in your mind with you, right? To accept that my Father sees all your thoughts, because He does, because He is divine in you, and therefore He knows both thoughts that you choose, whether it be love or whether it be selfishness. And so, however, we can't be perfect. This world was never meant for perfection. It was meant for relationship. If you give your thoughts to God, then you give them to the Holy Spirit, which is your holy thought. And it will guide you. And if you have faith in it, it will give you things that you need and tell you what your purpose is. Because even though if you really tear it down, there's no purpose. If you believe that the purpose of the world is to come to know love by experience, and that's what my Father created it for, well, now all of a sudden you have a base foundation you can create your life out of. And So quite often people think, oh, well, there's no consequences, but there's consequences to everything. And the problem is in this nation, because we've been taught to think selfishly, meaning of self instead of all of us together, instead of looking at what's right for everyone, we keep looking at what's right for us as an individual. And even though that is right, it is still wrong, because when each person seeks selfishness and puts themselves ahead of their neighbor, then this nation is what happens. You can see it. We have people killing each other. Our children are now don't even feel safe to go to school anymore. I mean, you can see what it is. This Christian nation has become a nation full of selfishness, meaning full of Satan. And because of that, our fear is causing our love to fade. Jesus said that the spirit of the law is the spirit of love. So when you let the law fall, then the spirit of love can't rise, instead it declines. And when that happens, well, then my Father's crop that he was creating starts going bad. And since he was creating all of this for love, that means when love hits its peak, my Father's a farmer and he's going to harvest. So understand that. That's what I've been talking about on here over and over again. It's not that I'm judging anyone by what I'm saying, but I'm telling you that my Father has a purpose, even though he had no purpose at all, right? He said, I am that I am. But he chose a purpose, and the purpose is to come to know love by experience. That's what my Father wants to be. That's what he is. But because he didn't want to be this other thought, he created a thought that is what is not yet is, which you call this thought of Satan. And even though he created it, it doesn't serve him, it serves us. However, we're supposed to serve him and not that thought. But when we choose that thought over his thought, and I talk in the form of thoughts, friend, because I'm not here to talk like religion. Religion's trying to complicate this so that you can't understand it. I'm trying to make this so simple that you'll be able to understand and be able to change your mind and find what it is you're looking for, because my Father is of spirit, and spirit has no body. Jesus said that. So understand that his spirit is in your mind. Your thoughts are his. And if you choose the thoughts of Christ, which are the thoughts of love, which Jesus taught you how to find the kingdom by doing the things he told you, then you will find the kingdom, and the kingdom you find will be greater than the one you had. If you want love, if you want joy and peace in your life, that's what that thought brings. If you want to know yourself as great, that means you have to compare in the world and be greater than someone else. Well, let me tell you something, friend. That never brings true greatness. Greatness is of love. And so when you have to be great in the world, you end up, friend, there's a bug on my screen, and it's getting ready to go right over top of the camera. Oh, look at him, there he is. I ought to almost leave that in. Here it is, December, and it's so warm out, there's a bug out sitting on my screen, so I think I'll get him off of there. Okay, so to be great in the world, you have to be great by comparison. And Jesus said he was the least among us, meaning he was the least for himself, the least for selfishness, and the most for God, which is the thought of love. And he said that there is no greater love than to give your life for your friends. So what Jesus was doing was giving my Father, himself, and you the greatest thought of love that is possible, and that is by giving it for the love of it. And that's what he did. And he told us we were supposed to carry our cross, and he literally did say that those that save their life will lose it, but those that lose their life for his sake will gain it. Now, if he said it, friend, he meant it. So this was not about us choosing selfishness and not choosing God, because my Father, through the Holy Spirit, has given you the ability to have a relationship with him. And so therefore, if you want him more than the world, then you go follow what Jesus said, do the things he asked, and my Father will give you the Holy Spirit. Now, I'm not talking about going to church and figuring it out, friend. I'm not here to tell you that man has this truth. I'm here to tell you that if you buy a Bible with what Jesus said and read, and you read what Jesus said, the kingdom is in the Christ. Forget the entire Bible. If you can't tell by looking around this world that we're heading the wrong direction and we're heading there fast, so the more that you look at, the harder it becomes to find the truth. Jesus told you, I'm the truth, and therefore follow him. Go read what he said and do what he asked. He said, those that hear my sayings and put them into practice will build their houses on the rock. Those that hear my sayings and do not put them into practice will be those that built their house on sand. If you haven't noticed, friend, this nation has been built on sand. I mean that literally too. But we have built it on sand because we have built it on greed and selfishness. A publicly traded corporation is a thought of Satan manifest into flesh, and it is teaching us that selfishness is right, and that's what our ads feed us all the time. They're always telling us that we're not enough and that we need something of this world to make us acceptable to others. We need prettier phones, we need prettier purses, we need prettier cars. We need all these things, and that's a lie. I'm telling you that's the truth. I'm telling you my Father finds you adequate just the way you are. He loves you, period. However, he cannot give you a kingdom that you do not want, and if you want it, you have to seek it. Because if your spirit is full of selfishness and greed and anger, he cannot allow you into the coming kingdom, because you will do to it what you've done to this one. You are divine. You will always be divine in creation, and therefore understand that Jesus talked about the kingdom coming back here, right? He talked about that the Father's of spirit, but we're going to live this out in the flesh. And so therefore, the new kingdom, there'll still be flesh, friend. Jesus, go look at Revelation. It'll become clear. So you're going to still be divine, but the difference is because you choose to put God ahead of the world and love ahead of selfishness, my Father's kingdom will come because we're going to bring it. My Father's never going to take your free will. Jesus said, in my Father's house there are many mansions. Friend, people back in the day, they couldn't have understood that statement, but you can look in a telescope and a microscope and you see the same thing. I mean, you've discovered that the sun is just one more star and that there's billions of stars and there's planets surrounding all of them. So I'm not here to tell you anything because everybody wants to take it where they want. And I'm not here to tell you I'm right. I'm here to tell you that my Father showed me so much truth that there's no truth to it. In other words, I know the purpose of the world is to come to know love by experience. I know that Revelation is true. And I know that we're making the wrong decisions because instead of choosing to put love first, we've chose to put selfishness first. And there's a price to that, and we're going to pay it. And you don't have to, but this world is going to pay it because you can see what we're doing to one another. It should be completely unacceptable to every Christian in this nation that our children are getting mowed down in schools. And you just send your children to school pretending that and hoping that it's not your child next. That's not acceptable to my Father. It never was. And we declared ourselves one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Friend, those kids aren't getting any justice. We won't look at the truth because we want to be selfish. We don't want to look at the truth because we don't want to accept the fact that we've locked people in prisons without walls. Where we've put people in the darkness just isn't right, and Jesus told us not to do this. So understand, this is not my Father's judgment that's coming, it's ours. We made this choice. And if we don't start making a new choice, it's going to come sooner than later. But that becomes our choice. We have free will, and my Father will never take your free will or mine. I have the free will to go back to the world and not speak this truth that my Father's asked me to speak. And trust me, friend, I don't look like anything special, and he told me he intentionally has done this this way so that no one will believe a word I say unless they know Jesus or want to know Jesus. Because when you look at me, you will go, friend, there's just no way that guy knows God. Because, friend, I did not come from the light. My Father dragged me up right out of the darkness. Yet he didn't do it. His children did. And those that saved me, now I'm trying to save other people. But I'm not saving them from God. I'm trying to save them from their selfishness. The thought that's in their head that's causing them suffering. The thought that tells us that we have to be more or less than someone else. Here's the problem, friend. When you think you're greater than one person, it makes you less than another because you have to make a comparison by the world. So if you accept that every person is a child of God, seek to be the least, meaning the least of selfishness and the most for love, then you can go about doing what Jesus said, and that's feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and visiting people in prison. Doing the things that make the world a better place, not a thing that makes the world worse. When we don't serve each other, then the world becomes a bad place, and it's getting that way because of selfishness. And this nation spread that thought of Satan, which is a publicly traded company, to the entire world. And just like the shootings have started, have been going on here, they've started showing up in other countries, friend. This is corporate cancer. And nobody wants to hear what I'm saying because there's no way to really stop it. But you can stop doing it in your life and make a new choice and choose love over selfishness. And you won't get the kingdom there, friend. You'll get it here. You'll find joy in your heart because you're doing the right thing for you, your neighbor, and for the Father. And Jesus said that we have to hang all the laws on the prophets on only 2 commandments. And if we did not do that, there's a price. And that price is what's going down right now. You're looking at it everywhere. And nobody wants to look at it, so they don't. They try not to look past the end of their nose. And those that do are falling mentally ill, which is really spiritually sick. Because they see what's coming. Your children are on drugs and in psychiatric hospitals and popping pills because they can't stand what's coming. They can see it. I've heard kids talking about it. I've heard them say, why am I going to worry about the future? Look what you've done to this place. And it's not one person's fault, friend. It's all of us. We've all made this decision together. But I'm not going to make this decision anymore, and I'm going to speak the truth of the Father has given me. And if you don't love it, then you can just shut the camera off. But I'm only here to save one person at a time, but I can't save him because Jesus already did. But Jesus said because he saved me, I have to save another. Just like the ones that Jesus saved me, right? It's about us helping one another. That's how we save each other. We save each other through love and forgiveness. Not through fear and selfishness, not through enforcement of the law, but rising in the spirit of it. However, the world has to maintain the law so that those that choose to can rise in the spirit of the law, which is the spirit of love. So I'm hoping that you understand this and start making the right choice, because if your spirit becomes full of love and forgiveness, then you become compatible with my Father's coming kingdom. But if you're full of selfishness and hate and greed and unforgiveness, then you're not compatible with the upcoming kingdom, and therefore he cannot allow you in because your spirit is still full of selfishness. So I'm telling you that if you follow this thing that Jesus was talking about, because the church is speaking like Pharisees, like serpents, because they're telling you that you can just get this kingdom by saying you believe in Jesus. But Jesus never said that. And if you go read Jesus, you will see that he said everything completely different than that. And that's not my Father's fault. He told you not to listen to the Pharisees. He told you if your righteousness does not exceed theirs, that you will by no means receive the kingdom. And he wasn't talking about their Pharisees. He was talking about yours. Jesus said that his words were forever. So understand, you have hypocrites up there judging gay people when Jesus told them not to judge anyone but themselves. That if they would look at the plank in their eye, they would not be judging people for the speck in theirs. The people in the world are not in your church, and the only people the church had the right to judge were the people within the church. Go read. Jesus laid this all out. Jesus literally gave you the rules to the new kingdom. And there's two things you have to be willing to do. You have to be willing to abide in the law that he laid down, and you're going to have to accept him as king. If you can't do those two things, you can't enter this coming kingdom, because he was the firstborn. So therefore, he has rights to the entire kingdom. Will there be other children which will be kings in their own place? Absolutely. Because Jesus is the King of kings, right? So understand that in the end, there will be a new society created, because Jesus can't be everywhere. I mean, what do you think? He's going to only have one little kingdom in Israel? If the second fruit, which is America, survives, won't it get a king? That might be Judas, wouldn't it? The second born, the second fruit, the new wineskin. But you'll have to go look at that and look in the Bible and see what I'm talking about, or I've talked about it in a lot of my other videos. People aren't seeing the whole picture because my father hid it till the end of the age. So you have a choice. You can go look at the truth or not, and accept that the church has not been saying what Jesus said, and start reading what Jesus said and do the things he asked. Because if you put his sayings into practice, you will build your house upon a rock. And love will be your choice. And then because you're giving love, you'll receive it. And you'll be living within the spirit of the law, which is the spirit of love. Doesn't mean you'll be perfect. It means you have to ask for forgiveness. But if you'll be willing to let the Father shine his light on your thoughts, and anytime you even think you're wrong, just ask for forgiveness. That's what I do. My Father's not angry. I do that because this thought of Satan has the power to make me feel guilty and drive me to the point of hiding my thoughts. So if I ask for forgiveness all the time, and I'm trying to hang all the laws and the prophets on only 2 commandments, perfection was not required. Relationship is. If I'm in relationship with him, even if I'm doing it wrong, I'm still doing it right, because that is the only purpose he created me for, period. Yet I am nothing, friend. I am one of billions of people. My Father could toss my thought out, and he would have all of you, right? So I'm insignificant. However, my Father, if it weren't for him, none of us would be. And therefore, we should all give thanks to him for the creation of what he has done, because none of us could exist without him. Yet he can exist without any one of us. Yet he chooses to love all of us because he chooses to love one of us. You know, and that's what this is about. It's about love. It's about joy. It's about peace. That's what my Father wants to know, is he wants to know love through experience. And he did that, so he gave us free will. He created what is not yet is, and now we have the choice. When we get more, we have more to give to those that have less. That's the purpose. That's love by experience. In marriage, you sacrifice, but you do it for the love of it, and therefore it doesn't seem like sacrifice. But that's what people call love, when they put other people ahead of themselves. My parents were great examples of that. They were not perfect, friend, let me tell you. But they were great examples of putting each other ahead of themselves, and they were also great at doing it with their children, except when they weren't, right? I mean, nobody's perfect. But they were excellent examples of that. And so I'm not here to claim perfection. I'm not here to talk about perfection. I'm here to talk about relationship. My Father wants to be in relationship with you. And you can receive the Holy Spirit. And you don't need to go to church and buy into what they're saying. I'm telling you, go read what Jesus said. Do the things he asked. He told you, call no man teacher. He said he was your teacher. You don't need someone else teaching you. They confused me and made this drag out forever because I kept trying to go to churches to understand, and they kept telling me something other than what Jesus was saying, and it confused the heck out of me. So I'm telling you, don't go listen to them. If you want to gather with people, then gather with people that are of the Christ. Go feed the hungry and clothe the naked. You'll end up with the people that are doing what Jesus said just by going out and doing that, because that's where all the weed is. It's reburied itself into darkness. They're out there helping the people that need help, because Jesus came to give you love, and you can't help people that don't know they need help. But the people that are hungry, they're naked. Those are the people that need help. And if you help them, then because you help them, they'll love you. And because they love you, they'll love the Father. That's just the way it is. It's about love. The purpose of the world is to come to know love by experience. And if you can accept that, you can create a life in this place far greater than people that seek selfishness. Yet, it's a personal choice that each person has to make at the time they choose to. And it's up to them on whether they choose selfishness and fear over love and forgiveness. I just think that's the better choice because it brings peace, love, and joy. So that's what I want in my life, and so that's what I choose to bring as much as possible. However, I do have to talk on here about the truth of what Jesus said. So I do speak directly against the church, not that I'm against the church, because it's trying to do the right thing, but instead of listening to Jesus, they've taken a lot of old wine and put a couple drops of new wine in it, mixed it up and gave it to you to drink. And that is not the way to get the kingdom. The kingdom comes from abiding in what Jesus said, which is hanging all the laws and the prophets on only 2 commandments. So yes, you can only receive this kingdom by grace, but you may not keep it and you will not enter it if you will not give to another what it is you seek for yourself. Jesus said that. The church did not. They talked with half a tongue. They're wiggling half a truth, right? And so, because if you go read Jesus, you will be clear that that's not the truth, or else Jesus lied. And if Jesus lied, then John 3:16 is just one more lie. You know, it becomes a choice. You can look at the truth or not. No one can do it for you. You have to make that choice. And if you want to be in relationship with the Father, get to know the Son. He said that if you know me, then you know my Father. And when you get to know my Father, you'll really know me, right? But you have to ask all the questions. You have to bang on the door to the kingdom, not the door to the church. Because the church will tell you what they want to hear, not what my Father said. So you go listen to what Jesus said and you'll find the truth. But you're going to have to look for it because it's hidden. Jesus said, I'm going to speak in parables so they don't understand, lest they turn and be forgiven. Do you understand? Lest they turn and be forgiven? Why did God not want us to all just get forgiven and get it over with? Because free will requires choice, and for one to have more, another one has to have less, and those that have more to give to those who have less, right? And so therefore, for me to give you a truth that Jesus gave, you have to not have it. So by me giving it to you, I am giving you the truth of love and the love of truth as I understand it, and therefore I'm giving you what I love, and I'm giving it to you because I love you. I don't love you because I know you. I love you because you're my Father's child, period. And I don't care whether you're Christian or atheist or Muslim, you're my Father's child, and I love you for that, period. And I'm going to have to forgive you no matter what you do. Why? Because Jesus told me to. And because I came out of hell, my Father loosed my chains and set me free. I know why you're doing what you're doing. Because you don't know any better. I was doing what I was doing because I didn't know any better, friend. I couldn't see the pain I was causing people. I couldn't see the pain I was causing myself. I could not see that until I forgave you that I could not be forgiven. But when I forgave you, then I felt forgiven, and that's when the peace, joy, and love comes. So every time I judge you, that means I put the plank back in my own eye. The Father taught me how to remove it through Jesus, right? So if I don't judge you for the speck in your eye, I don't feel a plank in my own. But the only reason I judge you is because I'm feeling guilty about something I did. And I don't need to do that. I can turn to my Father and then get the right thoughts. And that's what I do. And then it doesn't matter what the world thinks of me. It doesn't matter what you think of me. The only thing that matters is this relationship between me and my Father, period. It doesn't matter whether you all think I'm right or wrong. It's completely irrelevant to me. Understand that. I give you my truth because I love the truth that the Holy Spirit has given me, because it has brought me great joy, love, and peace. And that is what I want in my life. because I've had what is not that in my life, and guilt and judgment and righteousness, as far as being self-righteous, that all causes suffering. So I will seek to be the least like Jesus, meaning to be less for selfishness and more for my Father. I don't have to get this perfect. All I have to do is, a student is not greater than his teacher. It's enough to be like him. So I keep heading that direction, trying to become more like him. And the more I practice, the better I get, right? Unless I don't. But I'm going to keep practicing either way, right? I'm just not going to give up. That's what Jesus said. Just don't quit coming. So I reap, I sow. I reap, I sow. That's what I'm supposed to do. It's what you're supposed to do. Reap and sow love. That's it. All right, friend. Well, just know I love you because my Father loves you, and may God bless you and you.